G'day Eagles fans and welcome to another episode of the Inside Swoop, proudly presented by Jim Beam, where we're talking all things West Coast. Will Schofield, how are you, mate? Welcome.
I'm good. How are you, mate?
I'm good. Spirits were high for certainly you. You tipped West Coast on the weekend.
Where did I tip them? Here?
No, Fox Footy. Fox Footy. I saw it.
Really?
Said West Coast will win this game.
Oh, okay.
So spirits were high.
Okay.
Yourself included.
Okay. Fans,
Friday night footy, a rarity in season 2023. But besides from that first quarter, which was relatively even scoreboard-wise, not necessarily ball control and some stats, after half-time it quickly dissipated and hope was soon lost.
Yeah, it did. Look, momentum's been the biggest issue for West Coast over the first 9 weeks of the year. So momentum was no different in this, but they lost it early. And so when you don't have the momentum early in the game, you're then playing catch-up. But probably the most disappointing aspect was the length of time they lost that momentum and the inability to gain it back. I think in other games where it's been more competitive, they might have not had momentum for periods of the game, but it's been more of an up and down. This one was just a downhill slope for Gold Coast. So that's what the club would be disappointed with, what the players would be disappointed with, both from a midfield perspective where they couldn't get it done inside, defenders couldn't get it done one-on-one, and probably forwards in the same realm. They were in the same basket. So the momentum starts it and then it spreads throughout the field. So it was a disappointing loss, yeah.
It was around the ball, as you said. So the 8 unanswered goals were from the 43-16 contested possession rate. Clearances 14-3. I think it was 12-0 at one point. Your Matty Rouse, your Andersons, Jared Witt's having a bit of a field day in the ruck. They took control of that contest. Inside 50 is a bit of bloodbath. But it was pleasing they turned it round. Was that more attitudinal? Do you think it was foot off the gas for Gold Coast? Where do you see that third quarter?
The third quarter, they changed some things. West Coast, Jack Petruccelli came into the midfield, which I thought was really positive. I'd like to see that more. He's definitely adds something different in there. Can he play a full game in there? We haven't seen him do that, but he certainly was a good change up in speed, in the way he moved. So that was one major change, because they would have come in at half-time, West Coast, thinking, well, we have to change things. I mean, off the back of Charlie Ballard, he had 4 intercept marks in the first quarter, and 3 of those were one-on-one with his opponent. So to have a defender dominating you like they did, tying that into the way they were playing. So as Gold Coast set up behind the footy, West Coast just couldn't move the ball. And it was getting kicked to contests a lot, and West Coast were losing those contests. I mean, it sounds really simple, but if you can't win one-on-one contests around the ground, you can't do anything. It doesn't matter if you're winning the ball, it doesn't matter if you're getting clearances. If you're getting beaten in front of the ball as forwards, and then you can't stop them one-on-one behind the footy, you can't really do anything. So
they had an effective game plan early where they would chip it out of their back line, probably to midfield, and then the long ball in, they're winning that territory battle, and then they just set up too well for us to exit cleanly.
Yeah, that's less game plan though, the contested stuff. Look, you can speak to Simo or whoever else.
He doesn't pick up my calls.
Well, I mean more internal than I am. I'm just watching the game. But again, if you can't win one-on-one contests, that's nothing to do with game plan. No team in the AFL has in their game plan, win one-on-one contests. It's a part of your fabric of the footy team. You need to win one-on-one contests. You need to be able to bring the ball to ground if it's in the air, all of that stuff. That's in no one's game plan. So, look, I would argue that it wasn't game plan sort of a game. It was a momentum one that they couldn't win contests. And so, can't win the game if you do that.
Ultimately, the boys go down by 70 points. Gold Coast winning 3 of their last 4 now. They're on a bit of a roll. Let's listen to Simo post-match.
It's hard to point the finger at our forwards because the ball wasn't in there, and our backs, just the supply piece, we got overwhelmed with it. So, yep, they're a good midfield, and they taught us a lesson in the second quarter, and we knew it was coming, and we couldn't stop it. We're better than that, but we're not stopping the momentum when it really elevates to another level. So that's our challenge, to stop the bleeding. And it's not always stoppages. Sometimes it's ball use or team defence. So tonight it was clearly around the ball. Obviously, we're relying a lot on Tim Kelly and Dom Sheed, like a lot. So, we need them to play at the best every minute. Yeah, there's a lot of expectations on the group that plays every week to perform as best they can, and with what we've got available, it's a challenge for some of them. So that's reality, but we've got to be resilient. We've got to find a way to compete. So I'll sound like a broken record because there's no go-to. It's keep forging forward, keep trying to find the little things that we do well and do them for longer. Keep growing with your craft, keep growing with the style of play we're trying to do. keep trying to stop momentum. So we'll keep pushing that with who we've got available. And that's all we can do. Our fans turn up. They turn up tonight again. So we have 37,000 tonight. I know we're not delivering on field, but they're turning up. I know there's some disappointed members out there, and I get that. And, asking for patience, they can demand as much as they like. They pay the memberships. But we're trying. And while we're going through this, it's going to be a challenge. So there's no quick fix.
What about a few of the run-with roles, Scully? So O'Neill goes straight to Anderson for a tight tag. Jinby's following Rowell at the majority of contests. How'd you see those play out?
Yeah, well, how many tackles did Jinby have? 15, I think, in the end. So, look, sometimes that identifies really hard in and under. Sometimes you're getting led to the footy. So I think he would have learnt a lot against a really up-and-coming, developing player. Matty Rowell came into the competition and obviously had a few games. I think one of those against West Coast where he really set the world on fire. Missed a couple of years with injury, so he's almost starting afresh. He's clearly a student of the game, loves his footy. The eating the grass stuff makes me laugh, but realistically,
makes me sick.
He's a good, well, I could say the same about some things you do. But Matt Rowell is a good player, loves inside hard ball, and Ruben Jimmy would have learned a lot. Zave O'Neill in the same basket. Yeah, Noah Anderson's developing into one of the best midfielders in the competition. And what he's able to do around the contest from an inside perspective, but what he's able to do outside the contest. He's more of an outside midfielder than Matty Rowell is. So a couple of young midfielders from West Coast getting, a pretty quick education on how to go about it as midfielders in this competition. And then, you look behind the ball and what Charlie Ballard was able to do. He took the equal record most intercept marks in a game ever. And again, that comes back to my points about, winning contests. He won them. He also halved 9 of them. He had 9 spoils, 10 intercept marks. So that's a huge game. If you look down the other end, I said the backs couldn't win the contest. Well, maybe it was just weight of numbers because there was a few they didn't get done, but Tommy Barrass had 19 spoils on the day. So that's a significant amount. 22 is the highest of all time. So to have 19
It's not
spoils,
you by any chance, is it?
Josh Gibson from Hawthorn.
Just checking.
But I don't think I've ever got 19. To have 19 spoils, you need to be in probably likely more than 19 contests.
No, probably not enough game time for you.
Huge amount. Enough with your sledges. I'm rolling nicely.
Okay, yeah, you're doing well to bite your tongue. Thank you, mate. All right, so Duggo led the team as you'd expect. Honoured with the captaincy on the weekend. Stood tall, 32 disposals, 8 rebound 50s. Alex Witherden helped him out. I think he had double-digit rebound 50s as well. He copped a fine for this hit. The rough conduct on Alex Davies, so a bit light in the pocket. He might take the captaincy again this week and they might swap it. Boot's still 3 to 4 weeks away. Give me a batting order of who you think the Eagles' next skipper is and a bit of a hierarchy for yourself. Well,
to start with, Liam Duggan was the best player by a long way for West Coast. He was outstanding. Oscar Allen was good, but Liam Duggan outstanding. You could see that he rose to a level that, not that we haven't seen him play at before, but you could see he felt the need to lead by what he did on the field. So I was really impressed with how he played. Not surprised at all. That's the sort of guy he is. My batting order in terms of the next captain.
Yeah.
Look, I would have Tom Barrass pretty firmly as the next captain of West Coast. I think the club would see Oscar as too young to lead, but he certainly has capability to be the captain. And Liam Duggan would be in at first drop behind those two. But he's slowly working his way to opening the batting, because that performance with some leadership behind him was very impressive.
It's not a bad batting order, to be honest. So let's turn our attention for something a little different, Scully, the injury front. And another soldier goes down, an experienced one, albeit a bloke that's not in his career best form by any means at the moment. Jack Darling, fractured arm. Teammate Alex Witherden spoke about the incident during the week at his press conference.
I feel for him because he's been under a lot of pressure externally. Internally, we've supported him and got around him, and we still value what he's sort of bringing to the table. He creates a contest. He has really good leadership for our younger forwards, as I talked about. So he's brought a lot to the table still, although he's not kicking the goals that he would like. What he showed on the weekend is the desire to win and play for this footy club. He had a broken arm and he stayed out there for over a quarter. I think that shows great courage and resilience, really good leadership to our younger players, and it shows everyone how committed he is to trying to play good footy for this footy club. And we'll wrap our arms around him and support him, and we're looking forward to getting him back whenever he's available.
Yeah, you could see by the way Jack was playing, there was clearly something wrong. I figured it was a fractured arm because it's.
You called it early on the broadcast.
I did, because I know Jack. He's a tough player, and so he's not a sook. He's not a sulker. He wouldn't be carrying on for no reason, and so I figured, well, unless something drastic's happened, I reckon that arm's broken, and it was. No real surprises for mine, but
Took a contested mark with the arm, which you'd
yeah,
have to pay me a
outrageous.
lot of money.
I mean, if you think about having a broken arm, just think about if you're sitting at home watching this. You think about. I don't reckon you're running out into a football game. So it's a pretty incredible actions by Jack. I hope he didn't feel like he had to do that, given the external pressure he probably feels like he's under. And I'm sure it wasn't.
Only he'd know, eh?
Yeah, correct. But I mean, nothing but respect for that.
Yep. Jermaine Jones busted his nose up pretty good. He was subbed out at half-time. Let's hope he gets up for the Tasmania
Just strap
trip.
it together, JJ. Seriously.
Have you broken your nose on the
Absolutely, I have.
Yeah.
3 or 4 times. Just put some strapping around it. You'll be all right, Princess. 31. Come on, let's go. Let's get him out there.
It's looking all right for a broken nose.
Yes.
So Jake Waterman surprisingly not making it onto the injury report after this ball to the bonce from his teammate Luke Edwards. He's copped it sweet in that one and shrugged it off pretty well.
Well, look, I will say, look, if there's a forehead to be hit, it'd probably be Jake Waterman's. It's quite large at stages. Luckily I had a microphone that could be turned off because I pissed myself laughing when I saw this. And look, it's not something you want to wish upon anyone, but he has absolutely copped that flush from nothing. Just
Point blank.
Just rising like a pop-up sprinkler out of the grass. Just copped it straight in the skull. Jeez, it was funny.
We've got a lot of youngsters returning this week, Will, coming off a medium-term injury for a layoff. But it's the waffle bye as well. So some players are going to be, hey, I'm right to be picked, but no, you go for a Saturday training session as well. How many do you see them possibly bringing in, and which ones do they leave out?
Look, I've been impressed with Noah Long with his time. Has he had too long off to not come back into the side? He's a potential sub. Chesser, probably similar areas, so you can't sub them both.
Played waffle last week, Chess, so
Okay,
he might be right to go.
So he's probably in front of Noah Long. I will say that session when there's a bye at the state league level and there's an AFL game, you don't get picked. There's a few things worse in life, but as a footballer in terms of training sessions, there's genuinely nothing worse than that session.
Oh, really?
Saturday morning, usually early because everyone needs to prepare for the actual big game the big boys playing.
Yep.
All the coaching staff, of course, are invested, but you just feel a little. You want to play footy. That's why you're at the footy club. So, look, that'll be a difficult session to get through. You certainly work your butt off, but it's not the funnest session in the world.
Makes sense. This weekend we take on Hawthorn down in Tassie, 17th v 18th. We heard in the press conference, Willow got asked about, how do you feel about this potentially being the Harley Reid Cup?
Right.
A bit early for that in round 9, in my opinion, but what are you expecting from this contest?
Well, hopefully it's close. It's both sides down the bottom of the ladder, so West Coast haven't been able to match it with people above them. So I would like to think this will be a close game. Harley Reid Cup, I think that whole discussion is ridiculous. 1, because we're round 9. 2, because basically no number 1 pick in the history of the game has been the best player in the draft, pretty much. So I just think the fuss over Harley Reid. Look, I'm sure he's going to be a great player, but I know for a fact people at West Coast, people at Hawthorn, people at any club, there wouldn't be 1 second they would be spending on thinking about the number 1 draft pick. They would be trying to get better, play well, develop their own list, and then at the end of the year, if you happen to have pick 1, well, you can think about it. But what are you going to do? You can't control any of that. So couldn't be further from the truth, although it will be interesting to see who wins.
No, well said. The players will be donning their brand new First Nations Guernsey as well for Sir Doug Nicholls round. And following this, they'll be wearing it as well for the next home game at Optus Stadium.
Yeah. I hope they've made them in long sleeve. Look, I'm very much on long sleeve watch this week.
Yes,
Tasmania, Hawthorn.
What's the under-over for West Coast and Hawthorn?
Look,
8?
I think there'll be 10 plus.
Okay. We might have a little wager on that.
Yeah, so
I don't know if they'll get to 10, but yeah.
Great, let's put that line at 8 then.
No, you give me 10. You gave me 10.
The wager is a handshake, of course.
Yeah, gutsy stuff.
Yeah, there's nothing on it. It's just a bit of pride.
If you say so. But it was a brilliant design from our very own AFLW player, Crystal Petrescu, symbolising the unity of the football club with both programs. And all 3 codes were wearing this jumper at some stage. You can check out the story of the design through the West Coast Eagles media channels, or you can pick some of the new merch up at the Eagles Superstore. You can go to the club or online. They've got the jumpers, beanies, scarves, the training tees, and the long sleeve shirts, which I think you picked one up of those, Scully. Check them out, wcesuperstore.com.au. A couple of things before we bounce. We had Juddy come into the club.
I saw that.
Yes, earlier in the week, and he checked out the new Inner Sanctum. memorabilia sort of section here at the club. There's a little Hall of Fame.
Did he fly over just for that?
Surely.
Wow.
Cut the ribbon.
Must be good.
There wasn't a lot of people here to see that. I think he just snuck in the door and said, yeah, I'll have a bit of a gander at it.
Right.
Was there a one-year crossover with you and the great man?
Yes.
How'd you find him?
He was my captain, 2007.
Did you play much footy in 07?
I played 3 games. One of those was a great memory with another member of the West Coast Eagles now. I was in the goal square as a forward against North Melbourne.
Did you get lost?
Nah, that's a rangy, athletic type that they thought was quite versatile. Could play either end of the ground. I was in the goal square. Next to me was Chris Judd, who had lost a large portion of that, the back end of that year, to OP. And so at this stage, we talk about Jack Darling courage. Juddy couldn't run. At least Jack could run around and hold his arm out to the side. Juddy could not run, and he was out in the football field.
Yep.
But what he decided to do, I had a player on me that was getting into me, elbows in my back, pinching me, kicking the back of my legs, carrying on like a complete pork chop. Chris Judd walked over to this player and he said, "You touch Will again, my rookie, like I will genuinely rip your head off." And it was the way Juddy said it, his voice seemed like it was real. And I felt as a young player, how good is this? My skipper. Do you know who that player was that was pinching and elbowing and kicking me?
No.
Daniel Pratt, my premiership backline coach at this football club. And Pratty remembers it, and so do I. And Pratty feared for his life that day.
Really?
Absolutely.
Pratty doesn't strike me as someone that would have listened to that at all.
Chris Judd, "You touch him again." That's what he sounded like. And I was like, okay, Juddy's going to kill Daniel Pratt.
Very good. Finally, you know that when you're at an AFL game and you're somebody, you're probably likely to be spotted by one of the many Fox Footy or Channel 7 cameras. What have they got? 14, 18 cameras there. Yeah. It's kind of a big deal. You're never safe. But Boots, gee, he fell right into the spider web with this one here. What are the odds? Timing? I don't know how often he's doing it.
He's a nose picker. He's a nose picker, right? Who's the picker?
Right.
And so
this isn't stiff luck. This is you just got him at an average time.
Probably just chucked the camera on him. He's picking his nose. Look, I think it's a positive thing he didn't eat it. If we're going to take a positive about it, and that's literally what I thought. I was like, thank God he didn't finish that off just then. That's pretty much where I finished on it, mate.
Yeah, good way to finish as well.
Imagine if they had an ISO on you. Jeez, we'd see some things.
Frightening stuff. Thanks, Inside Swoop. Jim Beam, thanks for your support. Will Schofield, see you next week. Hopefully W's to talk about.
Bye-bye.